Welcome to the Josh Bolton Show, where we dive into interesting and inspiring conversations. And now, your host, Josh Bolton.
Welcome, everybody. Today we have Riley Oickle. We're going to talk about real estate, some tips and tricks, some awesome stories within the industry. I have no idea. It's going to be great. Here he is, Riley.
Hey, everyone. Yeah, it's Riley here. Thanks, Josh, for having me on. Appreciate it. This is going to be great.
It's going to be absolutely great. So tell me where you're from and why you chose there.
Sure. I live in Toronto. I moved there for kind of business opportunities. I lived in London, Ontario previously to that for about 7 years while going to school, and then stayed back for work. And was actually born and raised in Nova Scotia, just in a rural community in Nova Scotia, and then went to London, Ontario for school. But right now I'm living in Toronto. This is not Toronto, by the way, where I am right now. This is somewhere else. But yeah.
I figured so, because I'm like, that's a very different landscape for Toronto.
Yeah, this is Northern Ontario in the Kawartha Lakes. Yeah.
Nice. So then, tell me about your up and coming story and how you got into real estate.
My up and coming story. I think it's always up and coming. I think there's always something next. But so far, yeah, my story really is that I went to university for school and track and field. Really didn't enjoy what I was taking there. Didn't have any passion for it. I was taking like a health science course. It was called kinesiology. And yeah, nothing wrong with it. Of course, I learned a lot about health and nutrition. Just wasn't really the vehicle that I needed to teach me where I wanted to go. And anyway, long story short, didn't really focus on my academics. It's safe to say it was really on the back burner. I did graduate, so I did finish what I started there, and spent a ton of money. It was like $40,000 for a piece of paper I'm not using. Ultimately, though, yeah, learned a lot. Figured out how to learn and how to educate myself, which was very important. And around my first year of university, I realized I was going to be very in debt. It's safe to say if I did not start paying this off massively by the end of graduation, I didn't want to be 35 still paying off tuition and my debt. So naturally, I was like, okay, well, what can I do to kind of make some money? I ended up like running a whole maintenance company where I just knock on houses and ask people, hey, what can I help you with really around your home? Can I clean your windows? Can I wash or pressure wash your home? Can I clean your deck?
Mm-hmm.
Can I empty your eaves troughs? Like just general home maintenance work. And so I did that for the entire summer, made more money that summer than I had my entire life. I made 5 times as much I had the previous year, and was able to pay off 2 years of tuition at school. So that was pretty great. And I had hired 2 employees to work with me. So it was like, wow, there's something to this business owner thing, and then, basically the next summer I dedicated the entire thing plus a bit more into the fall into running the business. And we did 6 figures, and I hired on 12 employees. And that kind of gave me enough money to buy my first income property. And then I did it again. Like we're still running the business. It's kind of on the side though. Now it's more leveraged, and I'm just the kind of previous founder. And so that's kind of that was my first foot in the door to like what being a business owner was all about, entrepreneurship. And what led me into real estate was I wanted to start up a renewable energy business after this home maintenance company. And I needed a hydraulic drill to be able to run this geothermal company. And the drill cost $1.5 million. I did not have that much money, believe it or not. I was like 21. And so I went into the banks and I had asked the banks, hey, how much can you give me for the hydraulic drill? And they said, well, how much do you have for assets? Like, what are your assets? And I said, well, I have my Chevrolet Equinox, it costs $2,000. Does that count as assets? And they said, no, sir, that doesn't count as an asset. I'm like, oh, shoot. Like, so you're not going to give me a loan? They're like, no, we can't give you a loan. So, I walked over there pretty discouraged and, head hanging low, and was like, what am I going to do next? Really, then I was fascinated with the idea. I started to become obsessed really with the idea of what assets were and how I could get these things and what do they look like? And it was obvious that like stocks or like mutual funds, things of that nature, they weren't assets in the eyes of the bank. So I'm like, I need assets. So I'm not going to do the, stock investing right now. But rental properties were like an obvious asset. Like you could touch them. They're tangible. They have intrinsic value in and of themselves. So, that kind of is what led me on the path to educating myself on real estate investing and ultimately building a portfolio in Ontario here. And the rest is kind of history. I'd like to think now I could probably go to the bank and get that $1.5 million, drill. We have
Probably.
about 4 million now that we bought in the last year worth of assets. So, we've been growing pretty steadily. Yeah.
So are you ever going to get that drill? Just curious.
Yeah. Funny enough, where I am right now, this is a 4-bed, 2-bath. It's going to be a short-term rental property where it's already furnished. Now it's just a matter of listing it on Airbnb. Mm-hmm. And there's 100 acres of land here around like a private lake in the back.
Oh, wow.
So we have a compact tractor we purchased, and we're going to do some clearing of land after we have the city's permission, of course. And then we're going to have prefabricated homes and geodesic domes that are all going to be off grid. So it's going to be like an off-grid living experience, like a little retreat center here up in the Kawarthas. And so I'm starting to dabble more so in like environmentally friendly housing and green and sustainable housing. And so that's going to be a lot of fun. But ultimately, I think I will get that drill. I don't know if I'm going to run a geothermal company specifically, but I'm going to run some type of renewable energy business for sure. Yeah.
Well, and say, especially with how everything's going with the trying to get off oils and stuff, like geothermal, if it's done correctly, it's almost like infinite energy in a sense. It would be a good time to be like an early adopter. Well, not necessarily early at this point, but a more efficient adopter and like going at it kind of thing.
Yeah. It's going to take a lot for us to switch from fuels into like a renewable energy source. And there's going to be lots of different options, right? I just think geothermal, for me anyway, was an obvious option here in Ontario. There's very few competitors, and I wouldn't mind being one of the first people into that type of sector within the big overwhelming industry of renewable energy. If you can be the first one into one of those sectors, then you definitely can do quite well with it.
Yeah, for sure. At least a hard second. You got a way edge over everyone else kind of thing. Yeah. So then you going into the renewable energy sector, what is some of the things people get wrong about renewable energies?
One of the things that they get wrong. I don't know. I haven't really heard of any misconceptions. Really, I don't think anyone gets anything wrong around renewable energy. I think they're pretty clear on what it is. I don't know if there is anything that people get wrong.
That might have been my bad. Too vague. I was thinking more like here in America, our power grids are at least 100 years old. To put that much electricity suddenly on the grid would fry it. But everyone thinks it's just, we're going to go green like that. In 2 years, it's going to be fixed kind of thing. That's what more I was going for.
Gotcha. Yeah. No, I think when we're talking about just sustainability for the planet, for us as human beings, like the planet's going to be fine. We have to remember that.
Oh yeah.
When we're talking about like the overwhelming massive problem that we're encountering being climate change, that just really affects us and the other living beings on the planet. It doesn't really affect the planet. The planet will be fine. It will recover. It always has. Mm-hmm. It's really just going to save us from, a bad ending. My big thing right now is I want my kids, my grandkids even, to have snow. I live in Canada. I want them to experience having snow. And it would be pretty sad if it's like, hey, we have to like fly to the Arctic to like actually go and touch snow, because like that's the only place that there's snow now. So, it's a simple thing like that actually, is a pretty big deal if you really think about it. It can be anyway, if we make it one. So all the little things will make a difference. If I'm going to be in a business, I would rather just be in a business that's taking humanity's next best step forward. Mm-hmm. And I want to leave a positive impact. I don't want to leave a negative impact on who we are as human beings. So if that's just being in the right business, then that's what I want to do. Right.
And there's a lot of growth opportunity, like geothermal, water, solar, that's all good. But there's a potential I'm hearing a potential of like almost using like a plasma for the next level of energy kind of thing. So be interesting when as we progress forward, like a company, like you might be like, oh, I have a plasma reactor you could use to generate your cells for like, I don't know, 300 years kind of thing.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I haven't really researched that a whole lot. Yeah, there's a lot of different kind of new options out there that are innovative. I'd rather just for me personally, what I would always recommend is like just doing what's already been proven. I don't want to be the trailblazer necessarily. I don't want to pay the pains of what that means, because there's a lot of pain that comes with being not just the first in an industry in an area, but just the first that's using that type of practice, like the very first. You look at McDonald's and what they've done. It's like, great. Well, they were the first ones in the fast food chain industry. It's like, good for you guys. That could have went miserably wrong, but it obviously went really, really well. And then you kind of have, okay, well, now McDonald's is like the main person in that industry. There's obviously other fast food chains too, but you kind of have to think about, you have to be a niche within a niche. So it's like you have the fast food chain McDonald's. They're the first ones in. They kind of rule the mountain of like, if we're thinking of a niche is like a mountain, they rule the whole mountain right now of fast food. But then someone like Harvey's comes in, and Harvey's is like, well, we're going to kind of create a niche within the category of fast food. We're going to call it a subcategory. And we're going to be the first ones up the mountain of, we're going to actually make your own hamburger for you. We're going to make your hamburger a beautiful thing. And so, that's Harvey's like kind of carving out their own niche within the category of fast food. You kind of have to think about that too with like renewable energy. Like, are you going to be that subcategory? I want to be the first one up the mountain there. I want to be like maybe going up the mountain after a few other people have already tested it and it's worked well. Because otherwise you can pay a lot of expenses. But there's so many different ones, like this plasma thing you're mentioning. There's a ton of different options that are out there that are new and innovative, but you don't know if they're going to work at scale. That's the challenge.
That is the challenge. And I was listening to a podcast with this one a mining guy. Like he owns his own mining company, and he was saying how geothermal actually is pretty much the answer, but he's like, the only problem is we need to drill down, and then we need to like hook back and forth like 300 feet underneath the crust. And he's like, we don't have little robots with lasers to cut all that mantle. He's like, yes, we have good drills for like the oil rigs have figured out how to go deep, but they're like, we need to go really deep to make this work, kind of thing. I just sat there thinking, like, whoever can figure out that little robot with the laser, man, they're going to make a killing off that.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Yeah. There's always that first person in the door that, again, they kind of reap the rewards for sure. If done properly, mm-hmm. Like you kind of think of McDonald's again, and it's like, if you watch the documentary, The Founder, where like it talks about how like McDonald's came to be, the McDonald's brothers got the short end of the stick, and they were the ones that really came up with this innovative idea. It's unfortunately not always the case that they're going to be the ones that make all the money and get the reward. They didn't really in that situation. It was the gentleman that came along, and he actually like found the idea and was like, okay, I'm going to scale this. I'm going to blow it up into a franchise model. He was the one that made all the money. So you kind of have to think of the same thing, right? Like, just to come up with the idea is one thing, but who's going to actually be the one that blows it up and scales it?
Right. So I'm curious for you. I'm not familiar with Canadian law for real estate. What are some of the ways that you went about investing in your real estate property? Like for here in America, I don't know if it's the same for you guys. It's like we have LLCs. You could put your house in that kind of thing, and then only the LLC gets taxed, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, we don't have LLCs, unfortunately.
Okay.
I wish we did. Wish that was a part of our corporate structures here, or the available options. Like right. LLC, from my understanding, is like in between a sole proprietorship and an actual corp. Right. Really the ways that I usually do it would be like that. We'll just buy it under our own personal name. We can also create a corp and buy the property through the corp. But typically until that corporation comes with a track record, like a proven track record with other properties in the portfolio, other assets in the corp, lenders will just kind of pierce the veil, so to say, and they're just going to look in and just see like who actually owns this thing. And we're going to tie the actual person buying it, not the corp, to it, and they're liable. So even though sure it's a limited corporation company or whatever, it still will end up being that it's tied to the individual, not to the corp.
Oh, so, interesting. So I'm just curious if this is just an American thing. Is there a lot of lawsuits happening in Canada over real estate and stuff like that?
A lot. I'm not sure about a lot. From my understanding, there's more lawsuits maybe in America than there are in Canada. But we don't have I haven't heard of any. I've been doing this for quite some time now, for a couple of years, and know quite a few investors. I've never heard of anyone being sued. No.
That's interesting. So it might just be a culture thing. Yeah, because
could be.
Like here, I know a few people actually I do martial arts, and one of the guys I train with is a property manager, and he's like, yeah, he's like, I've already have 3 clients trying to sue the owners of the building, and he's like, I'm trying to mitigate and just manage what I can, but he's like, yeah, there's just the water wasn't on, so they're suing him. I'm like, really? That's so petty.
Yeah, it seems pretty petty. Yeah.
So
I don't know. Again, I'm not sure what the situation is, but
it's
it might be a cultural thing. Yeah, for sure.
Especially here in California, like speaking of the founder of McDonald's, is California is where the lady that got burned by the McDonald's cup and won because they didn't tell her it was hot. Did you hear about that?
I did.
It's here in California, so I think it's just a state problem.
Could be. Yeah, could be. I heard about that situation. That's pretty nuts that she
won.
She was able to win that, because usually McDonald's likes to just put the nail in the coffin and say, no, like, you're not winning this, because as soon as you win this battle, there's going to be a floodgate of people that just open up, and they're just like, I got burned too, and I got burned. I want to get some money from McDonald's. So
right.
But no, like I've read that report, and from my understanding, yeah, she did deserve the money, to an extent.
Right.
McDonald's coffee is very, very hot, so that is a liability for them. Yeah,
it is. So I'm curious then, how did you go about getting the money for your first property? What was it? You just the business fund you, which funded the project kind of thing? Or was it, I think you actually answered that earlier. Sorry.
No. That's a really good question. I find like a lot of people when they're starting off and they're like, hey, I know rental properties or income properties are a great revenue source, and I want some cash flow and I want to buy one. But how do I do that? Ultimately, it does come down to, like, a lot of people thinking it's just too expensive, or I don't have the mortgage capability. Really, what it does come down to is not that at all. Sure, those will play factors in the purchase of the property, but there's lots of mortgages available in North America, tons of them actually. There's a lot of money available too. A lot of people have money just sitting in their TFSA or their I guess in America there your funds, and sitting in a checking account, your savings account, and they're not working. It's like not making any money. So how are you going to put that money to work? Well, if you run into someone like yourself, Josh, or someone else that, hey, they have the expertise, they have the experience, or they just have like the knowledge base to like know how to put that money to work in the market, then you can actually partner with these people. And so that's what I've done. We buy about 10 to 15 properties a year using this method, which is just essentially partnering with someone. It's called joint venturing, where you're going to bring in your expertise and your know-how, and you're going to be the active partner doing all the work. That's why I'm here at the cottage today. Going to be doing the work. And then the other person just puts in the money in the mortgage, and you partner with them, and you both own it 50-50. So that's the kind of most common split, and really one of the easier ways to get involved in buying properties without actually putting in your own money or your own mortgage.
Okay. So you have, like we were mentioning earlier, niche down so much that like it doesn't matter what everyone's doing, and then it's like you approach a well-to-do person and be like, hey, I have a great plan for real estate, but I don't have the money. Can I use yours? And it's like you said, the split 50-50, and I'll figure out the rest, kind of thing.
That's right. Yep, exactly.
All right. That's a relatively easy concept. Just the problem is approaching the person, finding and approaching that person. So how did you do that then? How did you get your short list of people that you can be like, oh, I can always call Tom. Like, he'll always go in on a property with me, kind of thing.
Yeah. I always laugh at that question because it's not like, of course you can have methods and systems in place, and we do, for how to generate these, what we call money partners, people with the money in the mortgage. But it's almost like asking someone, and this is what I'll throw back. It's like asking them, hey, how do you find friends? How does one find a friend?
That's true.
There's not like, oh, I have a system. I have 12 steps to go and find a friend, and this is step one. It's like, that's pretty robotic, and I don't want to live like a robotic existence and be inauthentic like that. I want to, like, kind of happens natural. It's organic. It's just you having a conversation with someone. Could be anywhere. It could be in the the line at McDonald's. You're waiting for your Big Mac or something. It's like, hey, how you doing? It's like, great. Yeah, I'm going to see a property. Oh, you're going to see, are you buying a property? Yeah, it's an investment property up north. Oh, very cool. Do you buy them? Like, yeah, I buy a bunch. Oh, I'm actually looking to like put my own money into work in the market. Is that something we could do together? Yeah, let me get your number. I'll grab and it's like, wow, that's pretty cool. So I was just waiting in the line at McDonald's, and now I'm potentially going to be business partners with this person to buy an investment property. So it's like, there's no steps for that. You can't just say, hey, I'm going to go and put my schedule, go to McDonald's today to go find a joint venture money partner. It's like, okay, that doesn't work. Of course, we can mine data. We can mine our current contacts and the people that we know. I call them the 3 circles of influence. So you kind of have like your first circle, which is all of the people that you already know, that know, like, and trust you. These would be considered your first connections. So it's almost like LinkedIn, where you have your first connections. These are your friends or family members, people that you know really well. And then you kind of have the second circle of influence there. It's your second connections. That's kind of like friends of friends. It's referrals, people that know, like, and trust you maybe through someone else. And so these are naturally your contacts that you already have. And so you can connect with these people and say, hey, here's what I'm looking to do. Have you ever thought of buying a property, an investment property? If so, let's connect. I really want to put my effort in here for the next couple of years. If you have some cash and you have a mortgage, let's go and buy something. And then, okay, so that's great now. So you can talk to those people that you currently have. But then that third circle of influence, the third connections, are people that are complete strangers. You've never met them. They're not friends. They're not friends of friends. There's no referrals, family members in there. But you have to think about that third circle of people as 99.99% of the world's population. Because, that's the truth. There's a lot of people, 7-8 billion people on the planet. And the majority of them you don't know. And you won't know them through other people too. But there's a lot of people out there. So if you can really start reaching out to those people and become the authority, be someone that people, that they find online, if you can type in your name and then investment properties or something, that's great. That's a good start. That way you can also connect with that third group. But because ultimately you're going to kind of run out of your first and maybe even your second connections when you're partnering with people. And then you really have to be able to master that third group.
So then what are the steps once you've figured out your first and second group and you're working on your third? Because it sounds like you have a method, but it's not like you said, the 12 steps. So what are some of the things you do to approach them?
Yeah. Well, I guess I do kind of have steps, but it's not like, that orchestrated. I like to make it as natural as possible. I'll have 3 sequential meetings, and, they don't always happen for each person. It just depends on, if this is a good fit. Because I don't want to partner with everyone. I only partner with the people that do make sense. So, kind of like meeting 1 is what I like to call the intro, or the intro meeting, a discovery meeting, where we just kind of get to do a meet and greet for 15 minutes. And after 15 minutes of chatting with the person and saying, hey, have you ever bought a property? Okay, you have. How did that go? What are you looking for here, roughly? Kind of staying at a very superficial level in that first conversation. That will kind of give you an indication of, like, do you kind of like this person? Do they seem like someone so far that you'd like to partner with, right? Because, and if they are, fantastic. If you're in alignment, let's have a second meeting. And between that first and the second meeting, I'm going to send them like a deal example of a property I've done. I'm going to send them some information around myself and my track record, kind of my resume, you could call it, who I am. And they're also going to do a survey, which will be multiple choice, and they get to kind of fill that in. So that, again, going into that second meeting, I have a bit more information around who they are too and what they're looking for. And that second meeting will all be around the numbers. We're going to just talk numbers on that second meeting to make sure that the numbers make sense for what they're looking for and what I'm able to provide. Because if they're looking for 1,000% ROI in a year, I'm not able to do that. So it's just a waste of time. So I want to cover that in that second meeting. If the numbers make sense and we're on the same page and they're happy with what we're going over, then that third meeting is very important. That's where we're going to actually outline our JV, joint venture letter of intent. It's kind of like a little letter there that just says, yes, we agree based on all these criteria, based on what you're looking for and based on what I'm able to provide, we're able to go and buy a property. If we do find a property that fits, again, all those criteria that we just outlined, we'll both sign that agreement, and then we can go and we can start the deal search. We can start hunting for the property. And then once I find the property, fantastic, send it to them, make sure the numbers make sense, they're happy with it. They give me the stamp of approval, and then we go and we buy the property. And then we own a place like this,
It's fantastic. So I'm curious, throughout this whole thing, I was thinking, how much did this one cost for you with your investment partner?
Yeah. So we bought this place for $755,000, so $755,000. And that's Canadian. I know you're in America.
I think a little more.
So it'd be around like $650.
Yeah.
American USD. So we bought it for that much. 4-bed, 2-bath, and it's already furnished. It's ready to go, which is important to us.
And 100
we'll
acres.
Probably do around 100 acres. Yeah. So really, the potential here is like the land development, because we always want to be able to control the asset and do something to it, whether it's renovating the actual property itself or whether it's like kind of working on the land. So we'll be able to like set some things up on the land that will help us to get a better return on the investment. But this place alone should do around $70,000 in a year for short-term rental income.
Okay.
So we'll be able to make around kind of 20 to 30 grand in profit just through cash flow alone. That's not kind of equity or appreciation on the property. And then the other kind of auxiliary dwelling units, we're looking to do like an A-frame or a geodesic dome, a yurt, that sort of thing. Those should probably do around 20 to 30,000, and they'll cost around 10,000 to set up. But yeah, so that's kind of rough numbers.
It's rough. It's not even close to being accurate because we can't predict the future, kind of thing. But yeah, that's impressive. The first thing I'm thinking is like you. It's like, okay, build some cottages, get some money going, but it's like it's 100 acres. That's a lot of land. It's like you could sublease it out to someone else for like farming kind of thing too.
Yeah, it's not farming land. A lot of this is swamp right now, so it's environmentally protected. So we can't do anything with it. It's just here. But we also have hiking trails, so we're able to like make it kind of a nice retreat center where we're going to put gravel in. There's already trails trimmed out. There's a lot of mud puddles, so we want to make it more hiking friendly, so that we can advertise that too on the Airbnb listing, right? When we're promoting it, as hey, we have 10 kilometers of hiking trails. So that's going to really interest someone that fits the mold of someone that wants to hike or they want to ride bikes or something of that nature. Yeah.
Okay. I did not know that fun fact about Canada about swamps, so sorry about that.
No, all good.
So then, in all this process, what is your marketing strategy other than word of mouth and like bumping into referrals? Is it like, do you have a website you run ads on? Do you run like paper ads? You just staple to the wall kind of thing? What's your other marketing method to find the third group?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Actually, I've never been asked that. I think again, it's a mixture of like just always talking about real estate to some degree, not like obsessively like at family gatherings, like only talking about that. But ultimately, when I'm out in public and someone's asking me questions, usually I tend to like mention or drop that I'm a real estate investor in there somewhere. And yeah, like that alone will spark some interest with just the general public, that third category, like we're saying. Above and beyond that, though, like the actual strategic things that I'll do for my business marketing to reach out to those people would be podcasts. I think that's an obvious one. I'm on one right now. So anyone listening to this, that's an easy way to kind of tell my story and mention what we're doing. Another great way is like, we're writing a book. We have a website. We don't do any ads, paid ads at all. But we do have a website. We have blog posts that go on LinkedIn. We have a pretty active social media page on Instagram and then also on Facebook. So like, all that definitely does a great, that does some great work. And then we also go to real estate investing meetups, events, conferences. We meet with people that are wanting to get involved in the industry, but they just don't have the expertise. But when I show up there, we have a booth. People are interested, they can come up and we can work together. So those are kind of the most common ways that we're doing it right now, but nothing paid.
Okay. So I'm curious, as you've been in the game long enough, you could see the different paths to it. Let's say someone is interested in real estate, but only has $3,000 kind of thing. I know it's not enough to play the game. They think to themselves, but it's like, how do I put that to work and like get it into some sort of real estate? Well, what would be some methods you would recommend?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I always recommend to first and foremost, put your money into the education process. Okay. Put it into working with someone. It could just be a couple one-on-one calls with someone. Like we call it strategy calls here. We do some coaching on the side actually at my own company.
Mhm.
So, you could pay for a couple one-on-one calls where like someone can give you the next best steps. You can pay for a coaching program too and work with a coach. That's usually the best way to do it, I find, versus putting it directly into the market. Because even if you had $1 million, let's take away the 3,000. Let's say you had $1 million in cash and you wanted to put it into the market. Even if that person had $1 million, you still need to
know what you're doing.
learn what to do. Because if you put that $1 million in the wrong way, you could lose a lot of it, if not all of it. So first and foremost, educate yourself. Make sure you know how it all works. And then once you do, hey, like $3,000 could just be enough to like get your ticket to ride in terms of knowing what to do, getting your expertise. And then once you have that expertise and you have a branding, and people can actually be attracted towards that, and they can see you as the authority, and they actually want to partner with you. So that's what I did on my first one. Was I just put a few grand, it was like $2,000 actually, into coaching and mentorship. I learned from a coach, and then he just taught me how to do the brand thing and how to create an authority presence. And then people just started messaging me and like wanting to partner. So, it's really not that difficult. It's just, you definitely need to know how to put together the business. And if you were to buy a McDonald's franchise, like same idea, they're going to send you to McDonald's University, and you're going to go there and you're going to learn their systems and their processes that they've developed over 60 years. So you need to do the same thing in any business. You need to learn the processes and the systems, whether you're going to invest your own money or someone else's. So if you have $3,000, I'd recommend go pay to learn the systems and the processes. And then, hey, maybe you can actually partner with someone else too, right after that.
Yeah, you might get a partner from the mentorship where you both are like, hey, you actually know more than me. So like, I'll just give you my money, put it to work kind of thing. And you've already vetted through the whole process, like you were saying, like, them, you've worked with them. And it's like, okay, I like him. It's like I'd take them to the pub or the tavern and have a beer with them kind of thing.
No, that's it. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. No, it really isn't that complicated. You just definitely need to kind of pay to play. I went to university and spent 45 or 40 grand and didn't really get anything out of it, to be honest, very, very little. And so, and they just teach you there, like kind of very superficial information. They don't teach you like a lot of stuff that you can necessarily apply immediately. Like they taught me all the bones in the body and all the ligaments and the muscles. I couldn't really apply that very easily. It's like reading a textbook to learn how to play the game of soccer. It doesn't work. But like when you're going into like the real estate investing industry, you're learning from someone that does it. They can actually give you like, tools or like learning that will allow you to actually apply it directly after. So, I think that's the benefit. But again, a lot of the stuff that we do is like trade secrets. No one really knows how to do it. So you really do have to pay to play.
Yeah. And I would assume it's kind of the same rule in Canada as it is in America, where you really need to know your region that you're investing in, not just in general. Because one of the guys I was talking to earlier, he was saying like he has specifically specialized in Colorado, but specifically like whatever this town was. And I'm like, okay, but like, how does that work? He's like, oh, it's real estate. He's like, at a certain point when you have like 5 properties, like they're paying for themselves. But he's like, you have to know the region to know, oh, North Canada, you can't do a lease, but South Canada, I'm just assuming here, like you could do a lease. And he's like, if you do South Canada rules in North, he's like, bad idea. Well, he was saying in Colorado, but I'm just using Canada for you.
Sure. Yeah, no, you definitely have to know what you're doing. And everywhere is going to be a bit different when it comes to the bylaws and the restrictions. Also keep in mind too, that it isn't just about analyzing the property and the asset itself, but really it's also analyzing, like you're saying, the market. It's the city, where you're buying. You need to know that region. And once you understand that and how to differentiate a good region from a bad one or not so great one, then it's a matter of zooming in a bit more, looking at the property and making sure the asset's also the right asset within the right region. So yeah, a couple of layers to it, but again, we don't have to overcomplicate it. It's not that difficult, but you just need to kind of know which metrics or key performance indicators to look for to then make that decision.
So I'm curious, for you being a real estate guy, you would totally get this. What is your aspect for, what's your overarching like perspective of inflation coming? Do you think it's going to be running red hot, or is it, and real estate guys like you are going to do great? Or is it going to be more, do you think the inflation scare is too much? It's not actually going to be a problem.
Yeah, it's a really good question. A lot of people have that right now. It comes up quite often, especially with COVID and everything that's going on. I can't say I've been through like an entire market cycle, because the entire market cycle is about 17 years in real estate. That's just kind of a rough ballpark,
right,
for when the market starts and when it kind of ends in terms of the whole cycle. I haven't been through a whole cycle. So, not speaking from experience, but when certain people that I know that are kind of my real estate coaches or mentors that I pay for, that are kind of the gurus in the market, that have been through 2, maybe even 3 cycles in their lifetime, while they're investing here in the market, when they talk to me, sometimes my ears perk up a bit more and I listen more enticingly. And, a lot of them are saying, hey, within a year or 2 years, the market will naturally come down a bit. We have to keep in mind that the government's printing more money than ever before, both the US market and the Canadian market. And because of that, that causes inflation, granted. And then we also have to look at the other kind of component here, which is there's less supply on the market, but there's more demand than ever. Like, people were home the last 2 years and they had nothing to do except for sit around, look at their home and think, I'd love to upgrade. I'd love to buy a better home. So what do? They go on the market. They look to see what other houses or properties are on the market. They want to put their money to work because they just know, hey, that's what people do when the market's, when you have extra cash laying around, or when you want to keep that money working. It's like, I need to put into properties. So more and more people were doing that, but less and less people were actually putting their homes on the market. The supply was less. So maybe in like a market where I invest, there used to be 100 listings in any given month. There were like 40 listings. So naturally the listings that were available, it was like a bidding war. It was a feeding frenzy. People were just bidding because they wanted one of those very rare properties that were on the market during COVID. And that also caused a lot of inflation. So naturally things are now overinflated because of that bidding war that had happened. Now it's kind of, from what we're finding here anyway, is things are starting to level off a bit more now that the world's opened back up. The Ontario, Canada market is totally open, pretty much sitting with no restrictions right now, except for just indoor sitting. And so, I think people are traveling more. They're leaving their home. They're not really focused on like sitting down and like looking at their laptop to look at the listings available. So because of all of that, naturally, I do believe that the market will come down a bit. It will come down more than 15%. I doubt it. I don't think so, because of the amount of printing that, our countries have been doing. But it will come down, potentially 5, maybe 10% in the next year to 2 years.
Yeah, I think so too, especially with, it's silly to say, but it's like we borrowed all this money from the future. Eventually we're going to have to pay it back. And at least with our administration currently, it looks like there may or may not be considering a proposal for paying it back, which that would really upset the housing market, because they're so used to the bonds yield being under 1.2%. I don't know what it is for the Canadians, but is it your bonds are pretty low too?
Bonds right now are pretty low. Yeah. I'm not sure the exact amount, but interest rates have just gone down to like nothing. Like, you can get a mortgage right now for 1.3%.
Oh shit.
And I know, like in America, I think you're around 3 to 4.
I think we're like 2.5, but still that's, yeah.
It's free money. Like, you can't really go any lower than that. So you have to kind of worry about what happens when interest rates double or triple from what they currently are. They naturally will over time. So that's going to, again, kind of slow down the buying. Right.
Does your Canadian banking system offer different like rates, like adjustable, where if the bonds go up, yours goes up, or a fixed, doesn't matter, 30 years it's set kind of thing?
Yeah, we have 2 different categories. One's called a variable mortgage, and then another one's a fixed. So the variable can fluctuate depending on where prime is, and then your fixed just set. It stays the exact same. You're going to pay a bit more right now for fixed versus variable, but again, you're going to be fixed to that rate for the term that you're in that mortgage for. If it's a 2-year, 3-year, 5-year term, you're going to be fixed in for that duration.
So wait, is 5-year the max you can borrow on, or is there like up to a 30-year?
No, so 5 is max here. Yeah, you guys have some crazy like long fixed rates, like 30 years or something.
Yeah, we do.
We don't.
Oh man, that's a bummer. Yeah. I'm just like, wait, I'm just completely lost it. So what is the new, well, not new plan. What is your 5-year goal with your real estate and business on the renewable energy on the side? What's your 5-year goal for that?
5-year goal. That's a really good question. Right now, I started up a consulting kind of division of the company. So one goal in my whole business is to help people to buy their first income property. Mm-hmm. So we go from 0 to 1. And we've been able to do that now for about 50 people in the last year. So it's going well. The goal is to help 1,000. So I'm not sure. That's definitely going to be a 5-year goal for sure, to help 1,000 people to buy the first one. Mm-hmm. So just through coaching and mentoring, that's kind of what we're doing there. So anyone listening that wants to buy the first one, feel free to reach out. That's one big goal. And then the other goal that we have right now is to be able to basically just do as many kind of environmentally friendly houses as possible. So, I'd really like to, in 5 years, say that I've developed a piece of land with all environmentally friendly houses. So, I'd like to be able to do one of those projects where we have 10, 15, 20 houses being built that are all environmentally friendly, kind of like a subdivision that we're developing. That's all like very green and like modernized and up to date in today's standards anyway, with what environmentally friendly means and the best kind of sustainability practices. So
you've mentioned it a few times throughout this whole interview. What is, by at least your definition, because it can be different for all people, your definition of environmentally friendly housing?
Right. It's just simple things like the lighting, the lighting being LED lighting, making sure that we are, installing like toilets that actually have the button there to like cut down on the amount of water being used. Okay. Could be something like that. It could also be the type of insulation that we're using too. Using renewable energy naturally. You have solar panels or you have like a geothermal setup. So that's definitely going to be very important as your kind of heating for the property and the energy as well, like for the electricity. So yeah, if we can kind of mitigate the amount of water that we use and the amount of energy that the property takes up, and then as well, like using materials that are sustainable, that are good, then that's kind of what we consider to be green. Yeah. Right. It could be pretty radical too. Like you can easily go on Netflix and watch these documentaries on people that are building houses out of tires and dirt, and like really go into that radical degree. But that's a bit too far for me. I don't know if that's going to be something that people are going to want to go and do in the masses. Right. It's so far off of where we currently are. It's abnormal. But as long as the houses look very similar to what they currently look like, and as well, we're also using good green, sustainable practices, then I think that's the next best natural step forward. Yeah.
Honestly, touching on that radical thing, there could be also the crazy people who build a bunker with a whole farming system underneath, kind of thing. So, yeah, that's interesting. So for rebuilding, like a remodel, would you be getting wood or maybe using like a faux wood? Like, I don't know. I don't think it's even a thing, but it's like a wood laced with plastic because we're trying to cut down on plastic kind of thing. Just idea. Sorry.
Yeah. I don't really know how to answer that question. Not sure. I haven't looked into that, but there's a lot of research to be done before we actually start doing it. I have not done it yet at scale, like where I'm building a brand new home from scratch, but that's kind of, again, going down this 5-year path where I'd like to end up, and we're slowly getting there. It's been a couple of years, but learning more. And soon enough, we're going to be ready to take on our first new build project. That's using some of these better green practices above kind of industry standard.
Wonderful. You know what? I'd love to come there because we're also running low on time. We got 3 going out questions for you, and then you're
Sure.
so. What are some tips, tricks, or advice you'd give to a person aspiring to be real estate, other than what we just talked about, just mindset or materials kind of thing?
Yeah, I think the first tip would be making sure that you get a good mentor, a good coach, someone that has done exactly what you want to do, and you also know, like, and trust them. If that's the case, then I think that's going to be the next best step forward. Just like if you were to go to university or college, you're going to hire a professor. You're going to pay them at least to teach you something that you want to learn. So it's the same thing here in anything. The industry goes very deep with knowledge. There's a lot of information out there. So just make sure that you are working with someone that you know, like, and trust, and that has done what you want to do. That's my biggest tip.
Wonderful. Any reading material you'd recommend?
No, actually,
Really?
I've done that in the past, and genuinely, I do believe, like, reading a lot at the beginning, listening to a ton of podcasts, and watching a lot of YouTube videos tends to be a good prerequisite for paralysis analysis and info overload.
Interesting.
And again, it's just like not the right way to learn something. If you're going to try to learn brain surgery, you're not going to go and start listening to a bunch of podcasts and reading books on it. You're going to actually go and, like, learn from a legitimate brain surgeon, because there's no other way to learn it. You can kind of go all over the place. You can jump around in the industry and learn a bunch of random things, but it's tough. It's really tough to fill in the gaps that way. And it can really do a disservice to your learning curve, because info overload and saturation of knowledge does exist. So it's important. Like, you want to invest in the US market. Don't listen to a Canadian podcast. Listen to an American podcast, because, like, it can really distract you and make it even more confusing when you're learning about a different way of doing things within the market before you even learn the right way to do it in your own market. So just make sure that you're hiring someone, that you're working with them, that has done what you want to do. Yeah.
That's brilliant. So the second one is, where can everyone contact you? Website or social, et cetera, et cetera?
Of course. Yeah. I would say, if you want to connect with me, you can go to the website that we have. It's RileyOickle.com. So my first and last name.com. And there you can schedule a call under the coaching button if you'd like. You can schedule a discovery call and we can connect. You can also direct message me on Facebook or on Instagram at Riley Oickle Investor. And again, would love to connect with anyone that has any questions.
Wonderful. That's all it is for me. Anything else you want to say on the way out?
Just keep pushing on wherever you are in your life, I guess. And I know it's been a wild year to 2 years right now with COVID. So just keep pushing on and keep smiling. So that's all I have for now. Thanks for having me on, Josh.
Thank you, Riley. It's been an absolute pleasure.
All right. See you later.
Well, congratulations. You made it to the end. You're an awesome person. Not many make it here. So, being the awesome person that you are, can you do me one more awesome favor? Can you rate and review this on whatever podcast services you're using? If you do it on Apple and you leave an actual written review, I have a thing on my website. I will take your written review and post it for all to see. Congratulations, you're permanently sealed on my site. Otherwise, I am trying to do YouTube more and live streaming. I will try to put as many of the YouTube links in the description of the show as I can. So give your boy some extra help over on YouTube. Watch my videos. I just mute it and change the channel, change the window or something. But yeah, that's it. Thank you for being awesome, and see you next time.